Hey everyone! Are your design and development teams still speaking completely different languages? The handoff chasm is secretly killing your product velocity. Stick around because we're unpacking how to turn your design system into a truly scalable powerhouse. Let's jump right in.
So let's start with a really honest question. Why on earth are your design and development teams still speaking completely different languages? Resolving this exact disconnect is literally the secret to slashing your time to market and stopping endless rework. I mean, it's a tale as old as time in the software world, right? Designers craft this beautiful, meticulous vision, developers write the complex code to make it real, and somewhere over that massive chasm between them, the original vision just gets lost in translation. And what does that lead to? Broken products, incredibly frustrated teams, and inevitably, busted budgets. Here's our quick roadmap for today's explainer. We'll cover the cost of inconsistency, establishing a single source of truth, scaling through cross-team efficiency, what actually goes into the docs, and finally, making it all work in practice. Let's jump right in. Part 1. The cost of inconsistency and navigating that dreaded handoff chasm. Let's look at the chaotic reality most enterprise organizations face when trying to scale. We've all been there. When developers and designers are disconnected, you get bottlenecked release cycles and a product that feels completely disjointed to the user. Have you ever waited weeks for a simple feature update just because the team couldn't agree on a layout? If a developer has to literally guess which shade of blue to use or how much padding a button needs, you are losing valuable time and burning money. Without a shared system, every single new feature feels like reinventing the wheel. Think about the QA cycles alone. If your quality assurance team has to flag 10 different button styles across 5 different pages, you aren't just paying for bad design, you are paying for the dev hours to fix it, plus the lost revenue from a delayed launch. Moving on to part 2, establishing a single source of truth, the rules of engagement. What's really fascinating here is how this concept completely bridges that frustrating gap we just talked about. Look, a design system isn't just a UI kit or a fancy color palette, it's the definitive playbook. It aligns everyone from your high-level stakeholders down to the software engineers by providing a shared language. This documentation outlines your exact visual and interactive standards. It tells the team exactly how the product should look, feel, and function, leaving absolutely zero room for costly ambiguity. By centralizing these decisions, you shift the entire conversation from subjective opinions, like, I think this looks better, to objective execution. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive paradigm shift we're seeing. We are officially moving away from dead documents into a living, centralized ecosystem. Remember the old way? Emailing around static PDFs or style guides that were basically obsolete the very second you hit send? Yeah. The new way relies on centralized, interactive documentation that is actively synced with developer Git repositories. That's the central hub where your engineers actually write and store their code. So when a designer updates a component, that change cascades through to the developers automatically. No one is ever building from an outdated guide again. Which brings us to part 3, scaling through cross-team efficiency, or my personal favorite topic, the massive business ROI. Let's look at the actual numbers here because they're staggering. According to metrics from PayPal and UXPin, designing with interactive, code-backed components rather than static, pixel-based ones is an incredible 6 times faster. Just let that sink in for a second. 6 times. A feature sprint that used to take 6 agonizing weeks can now take 1. By utilizing a single source of truth that powers both your design editor and your developer's codebases, you dramatically accelerate your entire product lifecycle. Your teams are essentially assembling pieces that are already built, tested, and fully approved, rather than sketching every single interaction from scratch. The research really hits the nail on the head here, noting that without this system, you get ineffective back-and-forth communication, leading to major inefficiency and frustration between design and dev teams. By eliminating that back and forth, your teams can finally stop arguing about hex codes and start delivering actual features. When developers and designers are pulling from the exact same library of code-powered components, that friction just completely disappears. And this is how you build a massive competitive advantage. You drastically reduce rework and design debt. You seriously accelerate your time to market because you're rapidly prototyping with pre-approved components. And for large organizations, it facilitates seamless enterprise scaling while ensuring a predictable, cohesive user outcome every single time. Honestly, every hour your team isn't spending fixing visual bugs is an hour they're spending innovating and improving your core product. Okay, part 4, what goes into the docs? Let's build the blueprint. If you actually want these business benefits, we have to talk about what goes into the documentation to make it a functional bridge. Zero Height notes that a system without clear rules is just going to sit there unused. You need the building blocks. You need your design tokens, those raw values for colors, spacing, and typography. You need component docs that include actual functional code snippets and interactive props. But don't forget the broader stuff like accessibility rules, copy patterns, and direct links to Figma or Git repos. These pieces ensure your developers aren't guessing. They are executing a defined vision with exactly the right materials right at their fingertips. But here is the real secret sauce. Usage guidance. It's not enough to just say, hey, here is a red button. Your documentation has to communicate the intent. It must explain exactly how and why to use it. Maybe that red button is strictly for destructive actions, like deleting an account. You need to explain why that rule exists. This kind of usage guidance empowers your team to make confident decisions on their own, which drastically reduces the number of bottleneck approval meetings holding up your pipeline. Finally, part 5, making it work in practice, because setting it up is only half the battle. Let's look at the habits of highly effective teams. This isn't a one-and-done project. It is an ongoing practice. Look at the biggest mistake teams make on the don't list, treating documentation as done forever. If your product evolves, your system absolutely must evolve. You do want to start small. Focus on core tokens and components first. You do want to update your docs with every single release. And crucially, assign clear ownership. Someone needs to be actively responsible for keeping this source of truth alive and accurate, rather than scattering it across unlinked tools or hiding how the team can contribute to it. Supernova highlights this brilliant 5-step maintenance loop, which is basically your tactical checklist for scaling. Step 1, define the scope and purpose. Step 2, document the visual and code components. Step 3, organize them intuitively so people can actually find things. Step 4, test and refine based on feedback. And Step 5, this is where most companies drop the ball, maintain and audit it regularly over time. Follow this loop and your system will remain a scalable powerhouse. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Will your next enterprise update be built on a fragmented, chaotic foundation or an interactive, scalable source of truth? Choosing to invest in design system documentation is ultimately choosing to invest in the future speed and scale of your entire business. If you want to move up to 6 times faster and eliminate the friction holding your teams back, a properly documented design system is no longer optional. It is the bridge to your digital future.
Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.